Hello, I am Paula Bennett and welcome to my New Zealand Herald podcast, Ask Me Anything. Now, one thing I've learnt in life is it's never too late to learn something new. So on this podcast, I talk to people from all walks of life to hear about how they got to where they are and get some advice and guidance on some of life's biggest questions. Today, I am joined by entrepreneur, bar owner, former mayoral candidate, and my friend, Leo Molloy. Leo is not afraid to say it how it is, and I am delighted to have him with me for a chat today. Hello, Leo.
Hello, Paula. Hello, listeners, and I'm delighted to be here. I join a long list of esteemed guests of yours.
Okay, here's my housekeeping, right? I've got two rules. First is I'm allowed to ask you anything, but you don't have to answer. Mm-hmm. And the second is this is a safe space, so we do the no judgy zone, my daughter and I call it.
Explain that to me.
Well, we don't judge other people, which you're big into. You're one of the least judgmental people I know.
Well, I'm socio-liberal and I have a great tolerance and appetite for people's right to free speech and to behave however they wish, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
As long as it's not impacting on someone else's life in a negative way.
You are rather opinionated though, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, when you're brought up in a 7-child Irish Catholic family where you're competing for space, you learn very early in life to express yourself.
And stick up for yourself. Okay, quick fire questions. If you could invite anyone for dinner, who would it be? Living or dead?
Well, definitely Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama and the Rolling Stones. Really?
It's an interesting combo.
Well, I love good orators. I love Obama's, his ability to speak, the soaring rhetoric that he had. I'm fascinated by that. Mandela, I like because of his the way he was painted by the media as being a member of a terrorist organisation, and then after his 18 years, I think it was, on Robben Island, he became a humanitarian and changed the world effectively, or changed South Africa certainly. A magnificent human being in my view. And the Rolling Stones, well, I'm just extraordinary because when we were kids, Mum would say, don't listen to them, they're evil, and evil personified. Go and listen to Burl Ives or something similar. But here we are now. I'm 68 this month, and the Rolling Stones are at least a generation older than me, and they're still going. So
still kicking along, eh? God. And would you cook?
Would I invite a cook?
Or would you cook? Do you cook?
I can cook, yeah. I'm adequate without being flash, but I'd probably bring a chef in for that occasion. It'd be a pretty good dinner, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Be bloody interesting. Okay, we like to start the podcast by getting to know you a bit better. So you know that I've had your sister, Julie Christie, on the podcast, and we talked about the impact your father dying had on her. He had a stroke, when you were 8?
I was 11,
right?
yeah.
And he died when you were 11.
Which is one of the reasons why I personally took it quite hard when Efeso died, because Dad was 47, Efeso was 49. Efeso's oldest girl was 11 and I was 11. It's a tricky age, 11, because you don't really quite have the intellectual development to understand life and death and how it's all part of the cycle.
Yeah.
But you're old enough to know that it's happened, and that's quite tricky in itself because you've then got to try and reconcile or come to terms with what's happened. And I was always of the view for many years that Dad hadn't actually died, that one day he would tap on the door and just walk back into our life again. So, and it does create a massive vacuum. As a young boy growing up, you need to have in an ideal world, a very strong fatherly type figure in your life. It's difficult to navigate your way through those early teenage years without
What number are you on the
I'm
7 siblings?
Two of seven.
Yeah. So did you feel that sense of, how did that kind of shape your life then as far as kind of having to step in and step up?
Well, I'm not sure I stepped up because Mum was a particularly strong individual.
Yeah.
And you can never give Mum enough credit. The standards she imposed or the way she led us as a family, we all reflect on it now. We're one of those families where we might not have been particularly wealthy, but we never lacked anything in love or leadership or spirit or that type of thing. So Mum took a lot of responsibility and didn't particularly share it with us or ask us to step up. I personally found another father figure which led me into the horse racing industry.
Yeah.
His name was Peter Pinnock. He's a very nice man, and he could see that I needed something to occupy my life and someone to... You need to have contact with men when you're...
And it's a bit like that, that horse racing industry where where if you find the right person, they genuinely do take you under their wing, And you were young, weren't you?
I was young and I was pretty vulnerable, and I was starting to develop some bad habits even at that age because Mum had 7 kids to focus on, and Mum was trying to earn money as well to keep the house going. And I took every opportunity I could to go out and buy a packet of fags and have a smoke and go and buy a flag and a beer and go and meet my mates down by the railway station and drink piss and do all the bad things that young boys do. So when I got into the racing game, it kind of gave me a more positive perspective and something to focus on in life. Might not necessarily have been that helpful to my education because I left school at 15 because I got a bit distracted through the racing industry, but we managed to remedy that later on.
Yeah. But Julie and I talked about it, and, I could sort of sit here and start naming them, but those very successful people that have actually come from widowed or solo mothers is, John Key, yourselves, there's a lot. And do you think it is the influence of those strong women and watching them and what they go through that helps lead to success?
I'd imagine it's either parent. In our case, it was mum.
Yeah. But
mum also, Dad was a very placid man and come from our paternal side of the family is quite placid, very Irish in the way they live and, in fact, in the way they die. They die young of cardiovascular disease. Mum comes from a different type of Irish family, very opinionated, very learned. Mum probably did most of her learning from Radio Pacific back in those days. She was not a good sleeper and listened to talkback 24/7. But she had a great intellect on her, even by modest standards of those days. She went to a convent school in Hokitika and she was quite good academically. And we never lost sight of the fact amongst our family that education is the key to everything. You can't improve the situation you find yourself in today unless you're prepared to embrace something like education or win lotto, which doesn't happen to very many people.
No, it doesn't really. And Julie talked as well about being, petrified of being poor. Again, do you have that? Is that what drives you, do you think?
No, not particularly, because I didn't feel poor when the kids, I get asked this question a lot, but I always felt we were rich in spirit and we were brought up on humble food and I didn't get my first pair of jeans till I was 15, but that wasn't that abnormal in those days.
No.
Mum's father was a farmer and also worked on the roads, but he would always give her a hogget or a ewe, and so there's always food.
Always. But what drives you then? What motivates you to work as hard and do as much as you do?
In the old days, it was fear of failure.
Yeah.
But I think I've probably moved on a bit from that now. I'm a lot more relaxed and complacent now about what I want in life and what I don't want.
So, you mentioned FSO. You both were running in for the Mayoralty, weren't you, with Wayne and with Viv. So did you get to know him during that time? Was that how you got to know him well?
Yes, we went on the speaking circuit a lot. Wayne didn't participate as much as we did, but FSO didn't miss too many dances and I was there every time. He's an extremely impressive individual. Not just physically because he's a big man, but he was a really fluent speaker in multiple languages and I used to enjoy listening to him introduce himself, the soaring rhetoric of Obama. FSO seriously was nearly as good as Obama when it came to speaking in that style.
Yeah.
And I'm always...
so he grabbed the head and the heart, and that heart, and he just,
I always take a knee when I hear a good speaker.
Yeah.
I like Longy, for example.
Yeah.
JFK, people who can speak well. Impressed me.
And you saw him the morning that he died, didn't you?
Sadly,
you had a joke
but it was
with
almost
him.
spiritual that I did. Butterbean called me and said, I'm in town, bro, come and have a coffee, come and catch up. So I went down. There was a few other celebs around there, but I saw Fess and I went up and gave him a cuddle. And it was extraordinary really because I left and 5 minutes after I left I got a text saying the Fess just collapsed. So then 20 minutes later I got a text from Butterbean saying he's gone. And I thought, this can't be true.
No, it's just...
So I rang Butterbean, he talked me through the whole thing. It was sad, but Efeso was a very good man with a very good heart. We didn't agree politically, but you don't have to agree with everyone politically. But he had a good heart and he had good intentions.
It would be bloody boring if we all agreed on everything.
Yeah,
and why would you only select people that you were completely like,
But isn't it like a giant Venn diagram? There's some areas in the middle that we all agree on. Like we all agree, I'd like to think anyway, that we should focus on community housing because we can't have homeless people or people down on their luck left on the street. So everybody from every part of the political spectrum should agree that we should focus on community housing. But it doesn't mean we have to agree on whether we should have a military force or peacekeepers or have representation at the UN or in Gaza. You can have differences of opinion too.
Yeah.
And the importance of climate change, that's one where I always find myself going on divergent paths. I understand extreme weather events and I understand weather cycles and I understand that some ski fields will have no snow this year. But I don't subscribe to the theory that everybody should stop using carbon fuels or fossil fuels, for example. I think it's madness. So I have a little bit of everything in me. I have a little bit of NZF, New Zealand First. I have a little bit of National. I have a little bit of ACT. And there's a little bit of Green in me too, surprise, surprise. And I've got lots of friends in the Labour Party who I have regular comms with, current or ex. So.
Well, look, I'm a climate change, believer. Trust me. But I was having an argument with someone the other day, and they were saying, we've just never seen floods like this. And I went, but you're a Christian, aren't you? Yes, I am. Well, let's just go back to Noah and the Ark.
Well, I was about to say, I wonder where you're going with that. I was going to say, tell them to go and read the bloody Bible.
Yeah, read the Bible.
Fires, pestilence, vermin, famines, floods. They've had everything. So
that's right. Okay, so let's go back to it. So you left school, you were a jockey, yeah?
Jockey, that's correct. Yeah.
And then you went and studied to be a veterinarian.
I did a lot of different things in between. I went, like everybody else does, for a tour through Australia for about 6 months. Then I come back and I decided to go and work on the Ohau power project down at Twizel. That was when they built Lake Ruataniwha, which was really interesting. But the reason I did that was funny enough, it was an interesting job. I did it so I could save some money because throughout my riding career I hadn't managed to save quite enough. And then I went over and worked for the Queen's Racing Stable in a little town called West Ilsley down near Oxford in England. That was particularly interesting. Yeah. And I took time out for 6 months to go and live in Israel because of the fact we're brought up such staunch Catholics. I felt like I was fairly familiar with the Bible, and I wanted to go and see what cities like Jerusalem and towns like Jericho and Nazareth and the Sea of Galilee. I wanted to go to those places.
How old would you have been around about then?
23.
Oh, yep. Interesting. Yeah.
So I lasted 6 months. I started off on what they call a kibbutz, which everyone probably knows what a kibbutz is. It's the only successful form of socialism in the world. And we had people on the kibbutz who'd been in the Auschwitz and Belsen and places like that. They still had the tattoos on their arms. They were inspirational people. Yeah. And I worked in the bakery there. Fascinating. The driver at night, I'd start work about 10 o'clock and we'd deliver bread all over the area. And he'd been in the Air Force during the 67 and Yom Kippur Wars. And I'm fascinated by those stories because the history of Israel is extraordinary. Like Western civilization as we know it is really, 1940 the Americans become dominant. So we're a very small blip on the radar. But the Jews go back ad infinitum and so do the Muslims. And it's extraordinarily rich in history and it's palpable when you get there and you think, I've read about that so much. Oh my God, this is the River Jordan and you're standing in it. Then I went down and lived in the Negev desert, just where the Hamas came through the fence from Gaza recently by a town called Dimona. I ended up in a lat, and then I went actually bummed around the Sinai Desert. There's a whole culture there of Americans who were trying to find their spirituality and smoking a lot of hashish and weed and shit. I went and joined up with them and camped with them for a few weeks like all young kids do. Yeah,
very interesting, that's for sure. And so then you came back, and then you're back in New Zealand, and you studied to be a vet.
I was always of the view that I have to have something to do with horses from my entire working life. And the most obvious job where I thought I could maybe maximise my intellectual resources, my academic ability, was I become a veterinarian. So I applied to Massey Vet School to get into, or to at least enrol in first year from New Zealand House, and they sent back a fairly curt, blunt answer saying you're wasting your time. They said the only chance of getting into vet school would be if you went home and decided to go back to do, I'd left in fifth form, school certificate level, go back and do sixth form and seventh form. So I did that, went back and lived with mum again, did sixth and seventh form, then went to Massey. 5 years at Massey, but stayed 15 years in Palmerston North.
Yeah. And I've heard that you kind of upset the veterinarian industry a bit there by being, as you are, so entrepreneurial, that you were doing more of the mobile vets and going to people, which really people weren't doing that then, were they?
They weren't doing it, but a lot of people offer that service now. But what was happening, and we had a surgery, of course. I wasn't on my own. I had another vet work full-time with me, and we did referrals to work that was beyond our scope and capabilities. So it was quite functional. A lot of the procedures around the veterinary profession, with small animal in particular, they're fairly routine procedures.
So how on earth do you go from a veterinarian to then owning the Fat Lady's Arms and into hospitality?
Well, due entirely to one particular individual who a well-established lawyer in Palmerston North who was chairman of the Manawatu Club. His name was Mark Rutherford Wadham, and I joined the club, don't know why, but when you're in business as a professional in Palmer, you expect to be a member of the club. And it was quite an unusual sort of club. It was very sort of borderline misogynistic. I've been back there and spoke since. I spoke there last year about mayoral-related matters, and there wasn't a single woman present for a black tie dinner, which was quite disconcerting. Yeah, it was...
last year?
Yeah, you're stepping back in time a bit when you go there. But Mark Rutherford Wadham said to me one day, "You're the only member of the club who appears to have any imagination or flair. Why don't we agree that we'll reduce our footprint down to about a quarter of the club, the snooker room?" He said, "And you take the rest over and open yourself a bar." And I said, "Well, I'm a veterinarian, I don't do bars." He goes, "But you're Irish and you can talk shit all the time. You'll be good at it." So I said, "Okay, well, I'll go and do some research." So I don't know if you remember this, but in 1989, they changed the Sale of Liquor Act. They introduced the Sale of Liquor Act. So the duopoly of Lion and DB was removed, and anybody could open a bar provided you met certain criteria. You're still bound by council rules and stuff. But there was an opportunity, a window there for people with an entrepreneurial instinct and flair to get involved. So I didn't spend much money. I think I spent 40 grand or something. And we opened a bar, and because I chose such a provocative, edgy name, immediately it attracted significant media attention. It was grammatically incorrect too, in case you don't remember, but that never bothered me. But yeah, it just took off, and so that's suddenly my life was hijacked by hospitality.
So did you just have a brain for it? Did you or do you read people really well that you know what they want, or you know how to read a market, or because I mean you were one of the first to start in the viaduct as well.
Yeah. The truth is that the year I finished my veterinary degree, I enrolled in architecture school at Victoria University, and they said, we'll take you straight into second year based on your maths and physics grades. My wife at the time said, if you spend one more day in university, our marriage is over. So I decided not to do it. But the reality is that I've always had a sort of I don't want to stroke myself too much here. I've had a penchant for design.
Yeah.
And I like colour.
Yeah.
And I subscribe to a wabi-sabi design culture, which means beauty and imperfection. So a lot of what I do, I try to bring things together that each in isolation is probably not perfect, but collectively they give a very good feel. And I'm also quite good with lighting. I've studied other people's efforts in lighting. I'm aware of who the best lighting people are in this country. Yeah. And I tend to look at it and go, why are they doing that? What are they trying to achieve? So I'd like to think that our fundamental...
And is that part of your success, you think? You know, setting up the right environment?
Yeah. If you give people, there's only about 9 things you've got to give them to make hospitality work. I won't repeat them here because you don't need, but it's things like temperature, lighting, music are critical. So you work out what people want, give them what they want, 9 times out of 10 they will come. And people don't come because of Leo Molloy. I'm only a novelty, just a sideshow in the background. People from Ashburton might come and see me because they want a selfie, but the reality is people come because other people are there, and other people are there because you're providing an environment that meets their needs for 9 people out of 10.
Yeah. But then a lot fall off and don't survive. Is it because they're not providing all of that well enough?
Hosco is a particularly difficult sector. Any sector where it's easy to get into, where you don't need a lot of capital or a lot of qualifications to walk into, is always a difficult sector to work in. Because no matter how good you are, there's always someone nibbling at your heels, someone coming up behind you. I know for a long time DV used to be of the view that I was getting too old. Yeah. And they've asked me probably about 10 or 15 years ago, have you really got another one left in you? And I'd always say, I don't think like an old person. I'm still quite young. Mentally, I might look a bit tired and old these days, but I've got the imagination and the flair of a young person. And I also study trends. Like, I haven't been to the US of A for a couple of years now, but I often go to Las Vegas to a vet conference every second year. And that vet conference, I always take the opportunity to walk the strip and go to every casino and see what the chefs are doing, what the music's doing, what technology they're using, they're still using projectors over there. We've been using LED screens here for 7 years. Yeah. So they're a long way behind us in many ways, but you can never stop learning. So, and I enjoy, cities like Sydney are very progressive too, if you get time to get over there. Gold Coast, if you're really a foodie, Noosa maybe, but I've never been on the view that I know everything. I've always been on the view that I can learn more.
Interesting. Okay, when we come back, we are going to have a chat about your outspoken nature and how you embrace the public's perception of you. This section's funny for me because I feel like I know you so well. Yeah. And so in that respect, I know a complicated man that's actually got a huge amount of layers to you, and I think you are controversial at times. Are you controversial to get a rise, or is it just that you love giving your opinion?
I'm never entirely sure I'm controversial, and often when I'm introduced in the media to the general public, they describe me as controversial, but I don't personally feel like I am. I mean, my view of Leo is that I'm a particularly boring person, but I know how to insert myself into a conversation. I know how to insert the brand, HQ, into a conversation, whether it be a media conversation, whatever's going on. Graham Linehan, who's in town at the moment, I'm quite capable of inserting myself there. I am resilient, so no matter how much pushback I get on social media, I'm completely indifferent to it. It just doesn't bother me.
Really?
Yeah, I honestly look at them and I think, I feel sorry for them, most of them, because the sad little things they put on social media, I think if you had a reasonable life, if you were self-satisfied, if you felt productive, you wouldn't be even writing that stuff on social media.
Do you sometimes, though, before you put something on social media, do you sit there and think, oh, this will rack them up and get a wee chuckle to yourself?
Oh, not particularly. I mean, not everything I do is funny. I don't always try to be funny, but not everything I do is provocative. But I don't think people need to hear what I think about Chloe Swarbrick, for example. But I don't miss the opportunity to insert her into something like St. Patrick's Day, where if you drink enough Murphy's, you might swipe right on Chloe. That's the sort of thing that I would say. So. But then are you doing that to rack up those people that then would come out and just hate down on you? But who's going to hate down on me? Everybody's scared of me. I mean, they've tried it. I had that crowd up at the Newmarket Business Association got me to go to the Domain to tell all those anti-vax people to disperse. So I did it, and 2 or 3 of them threatened me. Then they had a picket down outside HQ one day. One of them hit me over the head with a placard. But that doesn't bother me. I'm completely indifferent to it.
Yeah. And is that because you genuinely don't think about it afterwards? You know, like when you're alone later and you're lying there and you're scrolling through the negative comments, does it just completely bounce off you? I know you're super resilient, but I'm trying to. People out there will be thinking, how are you that resilient?
Well, I don't scroll through most of the platforms because we have a company does that for us. They'll just typically point an iPhone at me and say, speak about this, speak about that, speak about that. Then they edit it up and they post it. And I know in recent times they've been putting a lot of vegan stuff up, which has gone viral.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah, it's gone big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about, I think, 3.5 million or 4.5 million.
Is that you
views.
arguing with someone over the counter about...
Some guy wanted a vegan meal, yeah.
And,
It seems to me to be an insignificant subject, and veganism is largely unfashionable now, whereas about 5 years ago it was very fashionable. But the young ones who I think mainly occupy that social media space, they transition very quickly from one cause to another, as you will have noticed.
So do you think, because most people are not as outspoken as you, like I know you think you're not, but you are, so you are, and most people are not. Do you think we're too conservative and too precious as a nation?
Well, let me say for a start that I have the handbrake on my tongue 99% of the time.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't venture into anything that is anti-Maori.
Yeah.
I won't venture into anything that is anti-trans.
Yeah.
I won't venture into anything to do with marginalising or criticising people of a different sexual orientation to me. So a lot of areas I just go, yeah, I get that. I understand why people are concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a piece on the platform the other day and I got abused en masse by people who worked at the platform and other people saying you're too woke because I was defending the right of those girls from the Hurricanes to sing whatever haka
Say whatever they want, yeah.
purely because it's the right to dissent. And people who say, they shouldn't be mixing politics and sport, that's bullshit.
Been mixing them for years.
I was an anti-Springbok protester. I got beaten up by the Red Squad. So my history as an Irish person is steeped in...
So you do have a filter?
Absolutely have a filter. I don't... Sometimes I say things just to antagonise an individual. But 99% of the time I think about what I'm going to say and I try to say anything I do on an informed basis. I don't just blurt for the sake of blurting.
And do you do it for your own entertainment or because you absolutely believe in it and want to put your opinion out there?
I've got a very active brain and because I have a very strict regime the way I live my life, because I'm not a very good sleeper, so I have to manage my life quite carefully. I limit myself to 4 drinks a day and then I go home and I read. And I read a lot of dailies from around the globe, so I have a wealth of information inside my head and a lot of it's applicable or relevant to this city or New Zealand's culture or where we might head as a country.
Yeah.
So I think if you were, for example, to ask me about Auckland Council versus think of a council in Australia, Brisbane's fairly comparable, I can normally back it up with a lot of information and a lot of data that creates a compelling argument.
Yeah. So on that, why did you have a crack at the Mayoralty?
It was all about Auckland Transport.
Yeah.
I just got so antagonised by watching what they were doing down in the viaduct area. Auckland Transport, the CCO model simply doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
So what would you do differently then?
Well, I would have put Andrew Ritchie in charge for a start. You've got to get the right man in charge of an organisation like that. I mean, on a budget of $2 billion a year with, what have they got, 1,700 staff or something like that, I think there's about 13 of them are paid more than the mayor.
Yeah.
But they appear to be accountable to no one. And despite Wayne's assertions, that's Mayor Wayne I'm talking about now, despite Wayne's assertions to the contrary, he hasn't been able to sort them out.
No.
So I think...
And is that because of the legislation around the CCOs and just how...
Yeah, I think when Rodney Hyde wrote the CCO model, he thought he was writing something that would be manageable by a centre-right government, because by that time he'd swung from left to right politically, as you know.
And also I think he did want to take the politicians out of the decision-making because we'd seen some pretty poor decisions from politicians.
Yeah, there'd been some bad decisions, but on a compare and contrast basis, Auckland Council is a very low achiever now. We're lucky with this environment that we live in. That's our biggest asset here.
And did you think you could change it? Is that why you ran?
I was slightly naive and I had to learn a lot, and it was a very steep learning curve and it cost a lot of money. But I learned how to analyse data and I learned what polling was and I learned how to do the focus groups from polling, how to interpret them. And it was manifestly obvious to us that whilst I had an initial appeal to 2 groups, the disruptors, the ones who wanted a disruptor, and people who wanted a Trump-type character. Now, as you know me well, I'm not the slightest bit like Trump, not even one molecule in my body, but I can see why people thought I was. So, but we also peaked. We're early ripe, early rotten. We got to 75,000 votes really quickly. You've got to get to about 115 to win it. And no matter how hard we tried, no matter what I said publicly or at public meetings, we couldn't get another vote. And when your focus groups drilled down, they'd say to someone, right, you're one of the 40% undecided. You have to make a decision to vote for someone. So you have a Fesso Collins, Leo Molloy, Wayne Brown or Viv Beck. Who's it going to be? And to a man and to a woman, they picked a Fesso because he's of Pacific Island extraction, or they picked Viv because she's a female.
Yeah, wow.
So we had comms with Wayne's team before I pulled out, and we said, look, we're cutting each other's lunch. We're in exactly the same political space, and we want to do exactly the same things for the same reasons. And he never once polled ahead of me, despite what the media say. So we said, why don't you pull out? And he said, I'll get one. Well, his team did. It wasn't direct to him. His team said, we'll get one more poll done. They used a company in Tauranga, which I scoffed at and said, who gets polls done out of Tauranga? We used a company called Stack in London. But he came back and said, I'm staying in. And at that stage, I said to Matt McCartan, mate, we're going to waste, we'd always spent 800 or something. So we're going to waste another $500,000. We can't win. So we quit.
Would you have another crack?
It would depend who's going to run. I think I've made my feelings very clear about who I support as a potential mayor of this city. If, for example, you decided not to run and there wasn't, my brand's so big now that I could probably come in 3 months before the off now and say, yep, I'm here, I'm a player. Whereas last time I went in about a year in advance.
Yeah, interesting that Wayne is going to go again because he always said he wouldn't, right, throughout the campaign and...
Yeah, you can say one thing though, and as time, what's he now?
Things change.
He's 77, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's in great order. He's very fit and looks after himself. I think he must be finding it exhausting. I mean, he doesn't appear to have a cohesive council. The 20 councillors seem split, and most of them seem determined to disrupt him as much as they can. That includes the left and the right. Yeah. I would find that incredibly frustrating if I was him.
Well, I mean, I know things about you that other people don't, as in the work that you do with Butterbean. I know you think it's widely known, but actually people don't understand that side of you. They don't understand what you did in COVID as far as, preparing meals for so many people. When I talk about you and, I always just say you've got no idea of the loyalty of his friendship and just how kind and generous he can be. What do you think people would be surprised to know about you if they thought you were the stroppy, opinionated... right wing.
Once again,
one-eyed.
I'm not sure the right wing would be very accurate because I'm certainly
I don't think any of it is, by the way. So I'm just trying to.
But I don't really worry too much. I mean, at the end of the day, I have to answer to myself and my kids, and I'm not too bothered what other people think of me. And people don't need to know what I do behind the scenes. That's irrelevant. I only do it when I can afford to. If we're having a good run, I don't mind sharing a bit of the love. I still support Butterbean and always will. Mainly because I see him as being at the coalface. I have immersed myself in short bursts into his life. But I'm a big believer in Butterbean. I think that he takes out many layers of bureaucracy between source of the income and support and the distribution of it. Yeah. He's brutally honest. I think personally that he carries heavy burdens on his shoulders. But he's done a wonderful job of turning his life around, so I'm a fan on that basis. I'm a fan because he's a battler. I absolutely love his mother and father. Their story is incredible. His father, even though he's president of the mongrel mob, should be Sir. Yeah. And so should his mother. They are just...
This is what they do,
They're blessed.
And so you do, you have your people or causes that you kind of, you work hard for in the background and try and give your bit.
I think I'd like to say I support battlers. So if there's a battler around, doesn't matter who it is, it might be a school in bloody Papamoa who wants to send a kid to reo lessons. Or I did some work with Honi Harawira at one stage with Te Tautakarau, I think that's how you say it, with their young kids who wanted to play league. So if there's a battler around and I think I can help them, I don't mind helping. You've got to bear in mind also, though, when I say I'm helping, a lot of the times it's not me. A lot of the times it's just putting together an event or a function where they get the proceeds. Yeah. So it's really about the people who come to the events and functions and buy the items at the auctions and stuff. I think you and I have done quite a few auctions now. Yeah. It's not really much about you or me, is it? It's really about the people who say, I've got 20 grand for that. I'll buy something I don't actually need for 20 grand, knowing it's going to a good cause. So.
Knowing it's going somewhere good, they feel good about it. You've got the right, you and I are quite good at getting the right atmosphere in the room.
Oh, you've got to be loud. You and I are both loud. So.
Yeah, well, we are. That's true. He usually goes to one end of the room, guys, and I go to the other, and then we just kind of do our thing. So you've had some ups and downs in life, Businesses, successes and failures, marriages, success and failures. You've had, things have gone. Do you think those things have made you tougher? Do you think that
To be honest
what
with
have
you,
they
the
taught
two
you in
marriages were particularly difficult. Murray and the first wife, her and I are friends now. I brought up 2 of her kids.
Yeah.
And we'll always be friends. She's a really good bird.
Yeah.
And the kids are great kids. So they live in Melbourne now, so I don't see so much of them. The second marriage has been particularly difficult, and I've been through, I think, 5 cycles in the family court trying to seek resolution and find a path forward. The judges at the family court are very supporting, and they said, look, if it's of any comfort to you, I have very close relationships with 2 of my 5. They said, they'll all come back to you in their mid-20s. So my eldest is 23 now. He lives in London. I've got a 21-year-old here working in town, a 20, an 18 and a 16. So they're still relatively young. But look, I'm blessed to have, I won't mention the particular child, but one is on my hip all the time. And I'm just lucky to have her. So, But that second marriage was particularly difficult and traumatic. Yeah, and it's just...
And does it? Do you just have to get through it a bit day by day and deal with what's in front of you?
It just destroys everything about your life and your business emotionally, monetarily. You've got to divide all your assets, and the lawyers inevitably come in like vultures, and each side gets a lawyer, and you end up in the High Court, and then you go to mediation. There's nothing ever civil or decent about it. You say there's going to be, but it never works out that way. No. And then over a period of time, what are we now, 9.5 years now, you start to get a degree of where you don't think about it so much anymore. Yeah. I still get triggered if I'm laying in bed and start thinking about the kids. So I've taught myself, the 3 who I don't have regular contact with.
Yeah.
I've taught myself not to think about that. And if I find myself suddenly thinking, I wonder what Mr. Rower, who's 23, is doing up in London, I just stop thinking about it straight away and try and think of something that's positive. So I've learnt mechanisms.
Because there's things you can change and there's things that you can't, and overthinking it actually is just going to get you down.
And I respect the right of a wife to leave you. I mean, relationships aren't necessarily forever. In the fairy tales they are, but they're not. And both my marriages were 15 years, and both wives left when they were 41, and both said exactly the same thing when they left and they didn't know each other.
Yeah.
So there must be more to life than this is what they said.
Yeah.
And I love you, but I'm not in love with you. They both said exactly the same thing. When the second one said it, it was fairly chilling.
Yeah. Yeah, and tough, right? So it's get up and keep going, really.
You have to, and you mentioned before my business failures. So we had, we did Euro here when I first came to Auckland in the viaduct. That went really well, and then Danny Doolan's. And I got a little bit carried away with my own self-importance and thought I can do anything. And what haven't I done yet? I'll go and do a nightclub. Yeah. So I went and did a nightclub, and it was a catastrophic failure. Right from day one, the place was packed, but no one did anything that would end up in my back pocket. There was no money in the tills at the end of the night. They're all supporting the Colombian economy on the marching powder, but no one was drinking alcohol.
But they're not drinking, right?
So you're on the society pages, but you're paying a DJ $200 an hour to play music you don't like to people who don't drink. Yeah. It was just a bad business model. But
and you've got no food, right?
I just thought I could do anything. And then that was a humiliating fall from grace. But one thing about Auckland that I think I do acknowledge and appreciate is people can look past a few hiccups here and design faults as long as they see that you're trying to drag yourself up again. Yeah. And it's no big secret, and I'll mention it again, there's a chap called Mark Wyborn who's a key player in VHHL. He's the one who got me started again. He was, I hardly knew him, and he stopped me in the street and supported me into another venture. But I learnt my lesson, and I think other than this last one we did, which I had no idea of how costs had escalated because I hadn't done a Barson's Cowboys in Queenstown, I've always been really careful going forward about how I allocate my resources and how much risk I take. Yeah, I'm not the risk taker I used to be. Down here with this last one, by default we end up having to take a lot of risk because the cost of building now is so expensive. But we've got it well behind us. The business is going on quite well. Yeah. So I feel like I'm pretty comfortable here.
No,
now.
New Zealanders are amazing. They do give you a second chance.
Yeah,
and they do. They can see past it.
I think it probably depends on how you offend too. But what's my version of offending? I went bankrupt. I got back on my feet. I worked hard. People can say, yeah, I can see that. So everybody makes the odd mistake. It's not as though, I guess there's some areas where if you make a critical mistake, maybe if you got caught stealing or somebody like that, or, God forbid, something involving sexual crimes, people probably wouldn't forgive you so easily. But as I said before, Auckland in particular, they're very forgiving if they see that you've taken your medicine, that you've been punished, you've been humiliated, and you're trying hard to start working again.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so Leo, the podcast is called Ask Me Anything. So this is the one little section, and I so don't want to do this with you. And so far, because I've done all the asking, you get to ask me one question. If you want to, you don't have to.
No, I'm happy to ask you a question. So when you become mayor, which will happen next October, how do you see me fitting into the council? What role will I have? Will it be as a CCO, for example, unlimited, where I activate the city for you and turn it into the sparkling gem on the Pacific Rim that it should be? Or would you like me to be a member for Waitemata and be your deputy? Or what would I chair? Which committee?
Oh, well, since I'm completely undecided about what I'm doing, because I hardly know what I'm doing next week, let alone next year, I think that's a very difficult question to answer.
Well, let's pretend then. It's a hypothetical question, rhetorical question. Answer it, please. You can't plead the fifth, do you?
No, but you do need to do something and you need to do it well. And so you can have something big. It's a bit up to you, really.
It's up to me. It's splendid. I always like it when it's up to me.
Yeah.
I'll be in charge of Unlimited then, with a particular focus on ports. That's the most underutilised asset in the city, and it is the jewel in the crown, but it needs a bloody good polish.
Yeah, it does. God, it does, eh? Bring on the stadium.
Bring on the stadium, if that one happens. That's an interesting concept, that, or project. It's only 15 hectares, but having said that, Eden Park's only 15 hectares, but Ports has got 77 hectares of land. You know, Chamberlain Park, for example, is 30 hectares. Avondale Racecourse is about 30.5 hectares. The people don't realise, the people of Auckland, there's 3.5 kilometres of berthage on that port with 77 acres. I could sell it tomorrow for $8 billion with a click of my fingers. That's what it's worth. It should be returning to the city between 700 million and 800 million. It's going to return 42 million this year. It doesn't even pay rates.
Crazy.
It is a tragedy. It's actually a scandal.
Yeah, it is.
Anybody who contemplates taking the ports, for example, to Whangarei is mad in the head. They need help.
Yeah.
It's such a big part of our economy here. And we're the biggest import.
But it can just be so much more efficient.
So much more efficient. We could use that land. We could shift the ports. You get me excited here. I start thinking, this is why I want to be mayor. There's so many projects, so much work to be done.
Well, let's keep talking because, Okay, thank you for coming in to chat today. If people want to see you, they should go to headquarters, shouldn't they?
I'm a novelty factor down there. I'm there every night between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock. I do my penance. I understand that people want to come and talk and just say they met you. I have a very strong brand around the province. It's probably stronger than within the city.
Yeah, well, they can pop down and see you there, though.
I enjoy it. So.
Yeah, and he's on X or Twitter, so you can go and catch him there if you want to as well. And that's it for another episode of Ask Me Anything. And you can get in touch with me by emailing askpaula@nzherald.co.nz. Feel free to send me through your questions for the podcast or any thoughts you have. Now, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, but you can't find me on Facebook right now because I got hacked and then they've stolen my identity again and I can't even get into my own account, which is my drama for the week. Make sure you follow Ask Me Anything on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also read my weekly column in the Herald on Sunday. I'm Paula Bennett. Ask Me Anything. Goodbye.